For this story, Major Mohammed Ali Shah is joining me on the broadcast. A very good morning, sir. What can we expect from the 13th round of talks between India and China?
I'll be very honest with you, Priyanka. You know, in July, when the two armies met together again at the border, the talks lasted for 9 hours. They spoke a lot of stuff. They tried resolving, and they say it was very, very fruitful, and they resolved a lot of issues. But I frankly, in my perception, I do not think much came out of it, because China ultimately is very smart, very clever. They're very sharp and shrewd. They have the tactics well in place. They will take one step behind. Of course, there's no doubt about that. But then they will take 10 steps ahead at the same time. And similarly, when the 13th round of talks happened today, 13th round, I mean, it has to be actually documented on paper and files, that the demarcation of land. I'll give you a small example, Priyanka, for everyone to understand. In this language, I'm sure everyone who does not understand the Indo-China dispute will also be able to get it. Suppose you and I are neighbors, and we have a number of talks, and I come to get into scuffle with your family, and your family gets into scuffle with us, that this is our land, there's no wall. Robert Frost wrote this poem in which he mentioned, good fences make good neighbors, unless and until there's a clear demarcation. So the entire line of actual control, the entire 3,488 kilometers border, even including the McMahon line of 800 kilometers, is all of perception. There's no clear demarcation. So you can have n number of talks from, I say you can have 100 talks. But what is going to come out of it? You can have a talk, but not for 9 hours, for 15 hours, for 24 hours. But what will actually come out of it? Ultimately, China will get back to its strategy. So when there's an agreement signed between, say, your property and my property, and it's documented on contract, on paper, on a stamp sheet paper, and it's legally bound, then you will comply with it, I will comply with it, and we will be good neighbors thereafter, right? But if it's not documented, we can talk in principle, but for how long? These are all temporary measures. They should be a permanent solution by documentation, Priyanka.
All right. What should be India's strategy to ensure an overall de-escalation in eastern Ladakh at this point?
A very good question, Priyanka. Very, very good question. See, what happens is, what we are not realizing is we are having core commander talks, high-level military-level talks. Military-level talks, they are not diplomats. Unless we have a defense attaché, only they are trained in diplomacy. The soldiers are trained in fighting. Let's be very clear on that. Now, there has to be a political solution, a diplomatic solution. There has to be a solution, as I rightly mentioned, when we document it for permanency, that, okay, this is the land. But on 4 July 1914, when the Shimla Pact was signed, at that time, China did not agree to our treaty. They have not honored our Panjsheel Pact. They haven't honored any single pact. Today at 10:30 a.m., as you rightly said, they will have the 13th round of talks in Monroe. But what is going to come out of it? I don't know how many hours that meeting is going to last. But something ultimately should come out of it, not for psychological warfare, for everyone to see that, oh, China is... No, we've had 2 serious rounds of de-escalation. But as you rightly said it correctly, we still have about 50 to 60,000 troops on both the sides of the border. Do you call that de-escalation? Do you call that actually, the tension is getting less? No, it is not. The tension is very much there. We all know. Just 2 days back, we detained 200 of the PNA soldiers on the Indian side. We let them go, of course, after interference of top military commanders, especially from China, who had gone on their knees and they requested us. Fine. But then, this will go on, Priyanka. This will go on. There is no end to it. And a full stop, not a comma, but a full stop has to be drawn to it by political level solution, a diplomatic level solution, by the international community, when a clear-cut demarcation, when the line of actual control becomes a line of control. But now that area is so difficult to be fenced. The area is very, very tough. I've been to the northeast, I've seen on ground, it's very difficult to fence that area. And even if we fence that area, it is very difficult to man that area, to dominate that area. One is, we make a wall, fine. But it's very easy to jump over the wall, and Chinese have done that. They have actually scaled over a They have scaled a high wall and they've come towards the Indian side. They have done all kind of unethical practices. They have done not only Islamic slicing in India, but in Nepal as well, in Hamla district, which is only 80 kilometers from Pithoragarh, from the Indian territory. So when a permanent solution, like when it's documented, like, again, I'm giving an example for everyone to understand, a property deal between you and me. If it's documented on paper and it's agreed upon, then only yes, it makes sense. Otherwise, only verbally, through principle, there's no permanent cure to it.
Right, now one of the areas that will be in question, and they will be talking about the next phase of disengagement, would be hot springs. So can you help us understand the significance of the area in question, and on what basis is China claiming its control over the area?
China is they can claim control of New York for all I care, but will they actually take control? No. So China makes all these psychological claims, and when they speak about hot springs or Gogra, well, China can agree verbally in principle about hot springs, I can understand, but they will definitely not agree on Gogra, because that area, that entire stretch is very, very strategically located, and it's of high importance to China in terms of dominating that area. But even if they do agree, I am saying, but they will only agree in principle. On ground, none of the agreements are going to be practiced and followed by China for that matter.
Right, now, we are all aware of China's salami slicing strategy. While speaking about hot springs and Gogra, what are the other areas that India should keep a keen eye on?
There has been a lot of talk on Twitter that, see, just yesterday I'm talking about, yesterday's news, where the Taiwanese president said that, though the US troops are training the Taiwanese troops, but we are not interested in confrontation. But now, then China's foreign minister raised a concern that why is it that US troops are training the Taiwanese troops on the sly, in hiding, secretively? They should come out overt with it and say that there's nothing wrong. But the catch here is US has not recognized Taiwan, and so is India has not recognized Taiwan. Fine. But now, when you do not recognize a certain country and you send your troops there to train them, it is unethical. It's not hunting, it's poaching there. So now there has been a lot of public view, especially on Twitter, when they said India should also step into the fray and they should also support and their strategy against China. Well, India is already a part of Quad. Japan, Australia, America, India. When there is also talk of India, China, India, Australia, Japan and US training the fighter pilots in the Anderson Air Force Base in China, in the US, against China to curb the aggression in the South China Sea and in the Indo-Pacific region. Now, what should be India's strategy? I think if you have, like for example, in the army, when we used to interrogate a suspect, we had to think like a suspect. We had to think like a militant. For example, a police, if they're catching a thief, they have to think of the thief's psychology and then only interrogate, right? Similarly, now we understand as Indians, we understand Chinese psychology very well. Psychological warfare. They're very good at fooling people, right? Now, we should play their game. We should play the game. Okay, these talks, fine, we are having these talks, we'll also de-escalate. But again, we will say, okay, we'll also move. But the trouble is, we are a very principled nation. We are a very truthful nation. We are a very open nation. We trust people and we are what we are. We cannot play these hypocritical games which China does. So what I feel is we have to, now since we catch the pulse of China, we should repay them in the same point and play their game exactly the way they are playing. When we play the game, they will also they will know. Ultimately, they will know. But then they will be more chary of us. And right now, China is right now panicking because of the recent meeting in the US, the Quad meeting, for example. So China is guilty because they have been doing all unethical practices, biological warfare, psychological warfare, cyber warfare, and because they believe in winning wars without fighting. So China is guilty, and that is why, to exert pressure, they are trying to, like we detained 200 PLA troops. They are trying to come over and exert that pressure on us. So it clearly shows the visibility, how China is actually panicking, and our strategy should be play their game in a better way than them, in fact.
Right, you just mentioned about Taiwan. Now, from military aggression to being under fire for COVID origins, how do we, and at the world at large, stop China and make it act responsibly? Because as we can see that there have been 13 rounds of talks and still we are at it. So how do we counter that?
A very sensible question once again, It is very difficult to stop countries like China and Pakistan, who are actually incorrigible, who are hypocrites, who will speak something else. In 1965, China proved it. They stabbed us in the back. They would come in a full brigade to just a platoon or a company, and they would say, Indi Chini, bye bye, we are brothers. We would trust them, but they would stab us in the back. So China has that philosophy. So we cannot really trust China. Even the international community, I'm afraid, cannot do much when it comes to China until there's a solution worked out of demarcating the land formally, officially, which has to be agreed upon, especially by China.
So do you think that now with the Quad coming up, they can actually play an active role in countering China?
Well, China would certainly be under pressure. You can see even a small meeting, no action, only words. Even a small meeting, what it did to China. They were panicking. So now when we actually step in to take action, and US is there. US will not, whether it's ethical or unethical, we all know what US does. So how US measures are. So US is going to curb China's growth by all means possible. Be it they have been training their troops and they have been training the Taiwanese troops. I don't know what to say about it. I can't really make much of it. But US will use all means possible, ethical, unethical, legitimate, illegitimate, in order to curb that. And if that works, but we should hit the dragon ultimately where it hurts.
Right.
Where does it hurt? In the economy. When we hit the Chinese economy, it will make some difference somewhere.
All right, Major Mohammed Ali Shah, thank you for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your insights.